to do it in their own good terms.
I think they've got half. Oh, yes.
They
They've
have
got like half or something, and then they said they'll have.
We'll condition it upon full notification. I'm not worried about that. So the issues were, on the site visit, were the runoff, only because these trees, however marginal they are, they hung on, and they are pulling a little water off here. So they, I believe the recommendation was minimum of 200 gallons of on-site stormwater capacity to help compensate that. There'll be other trees planted.
Generally, last time at the meeting, we deferred to the cities and the regs on stormwater.
Well, we'll have that discussion, but I don't think that changes it at all. However the city may want to do it, we can still go about it, and they're working that out. That's going to be a work in progress as they work through that, so I don't think that changes our role at
So
all.
when the board approved it, it was conditioned on the site plan March 5th, 2013.
When the planning committee approved it,
Yes, when the planning committee, the hose bib, only water and 16 amp for the maximum electrical.
so we have a maximum height of 16 feet above the grade in the backyard. So in that respect, it's consistent with prior behavior. Generally, it is a fairly unique situation. We have rarely see anything of this ilk, a pre-existing one. This is the second application for variance from these applicants. They redid the side of their house about a year and a half ago, and that worked out pretty well. And Seth's an architect, and I think did a nice job of designing it. Jennifer, do you have any comments from Jenny? Anyone, any other comments from the planning committee? Jess, any thoughts?
Mostly, I guess, just that the trees were lost, so the minimum, that would just be a minimum of 200 gallons. So if they wanted to do more, they could even do other things on site.
Sure.
Yeah. Seth's pretty sharp. I mean, the good news is he understands the cost of a gallon of water. So I don't think he's going to miss any obvious. I mean, this is his field. He's really versed in it. He's been ahead of the curve on these, so I'm not too worried. Do we have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Motion to approve conditioned on site plan dated. I'm sorry? Yeah, we'll get there. Site plan dated 5/3. Maximum height of 16 feet above grade. Hose bib only for water. 60 amp maximum electrical service. And provision of a minimum of 200 gallons of on-site stormwater performance and notification of all relevant neighbors.
The site plan was dated in May.
No, I misspoke. That's it.
That's why.
March 5th.
Okay,
March
thanks.
5th, I may have probably misspoke. Any other, yes ma'am?
This is a question, it's not a question that I intend to have obstruct this particular application, but why are we limiting to the 60 amp thing? I'm just thinking when, I want to be able, people to be able to get electric cars, and I want them to be able to get those chargers that work better than the takes 8 hours to charge, and you need a pretty hefty amperage to charge a car.
The reason we do it is that 60 amps makes it difficult to furnish a kitchen and run an air conditioning unit and put an illegal apartment in a garage. So that's absolutely been a traditional way of trying to make it more difficult to put an illegal apartment in on outbuildings in Virginia-Highland.
So how are we going to start accommodating electric cars, which Virginia-Highland, I think, would eventually like?
We'll have to deal with it when they arrive. I mean, I'm sure we're all pro-electric car.
Pretty close.
You know, in all likelihood, they'll have a separate line that will power their recharging station as opposed to just plugging it into the garage.
Why don't we not discuss it at a board meeting, but I think it's something we can look at and see if there's another way to skin that to get to that outcome. I know what we're trying to do with it. It's been a really good way to do it, and so if we need to rethink that, we can think that. The other possibility is that the charging systems will also greatly improve, and then you won't get nearly the amount of charging you likely may think. So rather than sit here and speculate, we could certainly look at that and look for other options, but that's what our goal has been, and it's a good one.
So anyway, I'd like to ask the planning committee to start figuring out how we want to modify these so that we can accommodate electric cars.
Okay, we can look at that. I think that's well worth thinking about.
Great question.
Is there any further comments from the audience? Any questions from board members? I thought we had a second. Did we have a second for that? We did.
John?
You didn't, you
John
joined
did.
it?
No, we didn't. Do you know the terms? You heard it? It was the ones we recited. All right. All those in favor, please raise your hand. And opposed, it's unanimous. Thank you for coming. Maybe if you get back, you can score a tying goal in the leading seconds and run on it.
I left it in
Be
good
the
hands.
hero.
I left it in good hands.
Possibly can run on field from an offside position from behind the goal like it did.
Good sneaking, you know.
So that gets us through the planning piece of tonight's meeting. And Ms. Berg, we have you down for sidewalk update for us?
Yeah, I had a bad sidewalk day today.
Just
Anyway, quick note on the sidewalks. It looks like we're pushed out about 6 weeks on getting the St. Charles sidewalk bundle actually installed, but it should be installed in roughly 6 weeks.
Where does that put it? May, sometime?
Yeah,
well, June 1 would be delightful.
right.
You know, I think we're quibbling about a few weeks at this stage of the game. You know, Peggy, when this happens, we're going to have some form of celebration. I don't know
The champagne's on me.
exactly. You may get the Sisyphus Award for shoving this rock uphill for 18 months here in a row. So, in any case, do we have any other business to come before this board tonight? We are going to speak. Yes, David?
Yeah, I have a question or a comment for Peggy. I live on Rockland,
Yeah.
and the Valet lot that's at the bank has become a real significant problem, especially when the weather's bad, that the Valet drivers are leaving the car, they're staging the cars on Todd, which is either blocking traffic for cars that are turning left from Virginia, or they're staging on the other side of Todd, which makes it difficult to get from Rupley to Virginia Avenue, so it's blocking a lot of traffic.
Is the Valet lot the bank?
It's the bank lot.
Okay.
It's the bank lot. They're parking the cars over the sidewalk again, on both the Murphy side and the Todd's, the bank side. And they don't really give a flip about anyone that's trying to get through. And unfortunately, some of the patrons don't give a flip either when they're getting in their cars, instead of recognizing that they've got a pile full of cars behind them waiting to move on. They're casually, climbing in, getting their kid in the car seat or whatever, and holding traffic up. It's now become dangerous, once again, when it's raining out, it's the worst time.
It's a royal pain in the butt. I mean, it might very well be that the use of our new camera would be, so, to just take pictures of it to show what's going on. It's highly variable with the individuals who are running the parking lot at a given evening. And
Is there, I'm not ever up there at dinner time. Is there any way that, are you ever there when you could have a couple of pictures?
I've taken some pictures on my cell phone. They don't come out really well, but I can do that. It's kind of hard to get the whole problem in one photograph. I mean, I can show a picture of a car that's stopped on Todd, but you don't really get the feel for all the cars that are backed up on Virginia and out going in either direction because they can't turn in or out.
Do you have a video?
I can certainly
take a
attest.
video.
I can certainly attest as a second. It's very difficult when those cars are blocking the way because they're parked towards the side and there's that crosswalk over there. And so it's pretty dangerous, especially when it's raining. You're right, because I live on Virginia, and so when I'm trying to go, if I'm ever coming from the Parkway over across North Highland, it's very difficult where everyone's trying to make that left, but also everyone stops on the crosswalk. That's on the one that's on Virginia.
is there a solution we want? Is there something specifically that we want the valets to do?
We want the valets, I've been through that about 50 times with them myself
Yeah.
over the years. They need to not fill up the parking
Not as many
lot
cars.
to the
that's-
maximum percentage and leave space to stage their arrivals and drop-offs. This is not hard, it's not rocket science, but it's not in their best financial interest to do that. They need to cut the parking off earlier, leave room so they can roll cars in and out, and
Okay.
stage them there. And they're theoretically supposed to do that to allow access to the ATM by car, but that's just impossible for all effective purposes. And they need to pull, therefore, when they retrieve a car, they retrieve it in the parking lot. And then people exit in the parking lot like normal traffic. And they do not accept people getting out, take their keys from them in the street. All of that is eminently doable. They could just tell people to pull it on there. But it is not in their best financial interest to do it. And enforcement has been incredibly nightmarishly difficult to come up with.
Even when they do pull into the parking lot, it's only right when the parking lot starts. So anybody else who's waiting their turn to get in is also just waiting on the street. So, I mean, I think one good suggestion is if their staging has to be a loop, and you have to get out after already making a U-turn or something,
It's
you
an
know,
excellent suggestion.
something like that.
There's
Then
a bunch of things,
be
they're
a line
parking
inside the parking
way more than the cars already, which makes a certain amount of sense to the degree that, you know, you may as well use the space, but now it's way out of hand. And then pulling onto this, you very often can't walk down that side of the street without detouring in, on the sidewalk, without detouring into the street. It's a pain in the butt, and they tend to be, you know,
They're valets.
21
Yeah.
and full of themselves, and they're super cool.
Dismissive is the word.
They're super cool.
I have a question.
Yes.
Have we ever looked into city cams for like the Virginia-Highland core, or how expensive are they? I mean, because it might, if they know they're being watched 24/7, they might behave themselves, and it might deter a lot of crime. I know it happens there in the after hours. I don't know how expensive
I'm
it
not
is.
sure there is much crime there in the after hours, but no, we haven't.
At that ATM, I think
David
some
Wolfson was actually really interested in looking at some cameras.
Because if they know they're being watched, and we tell them, they might actually listen and behave. I don't know, it's just a thought.
It's not a bit of fun. Yes.
Is there a possibility, well, a suggestion to move the ATM to the other side of the building? Where, you know, it's
But
not.
this is the point, that's the bank's ATM, so they can do whatever they want with it. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't think it matters where the ATM is, they've got to modify their behaviors with or without the ATM, I think, and if they not willing to modify them, your suggestion is right, they need a loop, it probably needs to be drawn and painted and all this stuff, but, I mean, this isn't rocket science, any two people in this room could figure it out in 5 minutes if they put their mind to it. I mean, sir?
The merchants that are involved in that contract maybe could put some pressure on the people that are parking the cars in Valet, because any number of people have spoken, and you, including yourself, to these people, and that, you know, they're just gonna just blow you off. And
Do they have bosses or, I mean, can you escalate it up?
No, exactly.
So we have an issue, what we have, it's Wells Fargo's parking lot and it's Murphy's traffic, right?
And the top lot.
Well, actually, Stewart is a partner to it as well, but Murphy holds the lease. And sure, we'll go speak to him. He normally, I'm sure he'd be glad to hear our opinion on that.
Tom would know. You know what?
But can we, let's try to think about this,
Let's
okay?
think about it. Okay, thanks for
It's a
bringing it
good
up, I
point.
appreciate
It's a good
that.
point.
And I did want to say on the Highland View sidewalk bundle, the next sidewalk bundle, I haven't given it up. The city is coming out with a new policy of how to make it possible for neighborhoods to work on sidewalks. They just haven't put the policy together yet. I'm thinking it's not going to be workable on the first round. So we're going to have to help the city get past its first policy and onto the second policy, but we'll get there. I'd really like to get there.
Let's
Hopefully
get,
they
let's
will
get,
file it
Let's get the first one done and then we'll,
We'll just-
I'm not willing to think about asking any more until we get these done. Eliana, is it Eliana?
Eliana, yeah.
Yeah, okay, I do want to talk to you. We're gonna let the meeting go and let everybody go, but, so unless there's any new business to come before us.
I'm sorry, but, and Jane Rollins may have left you an email
She did.
about, many of you may be aware that Alex Wan in December introduced legislation to sunset the non-conforming uses on Cheshire Bridge using an amortization process. And that.
And now put that in English, what does that mean?
You know, may I just say something here, Debbie? I told Jane we weren't going to deal with it. And the reason I said we wouldn't deal with it is it's about Cheshire Bridge. It doesn't about us. It's nowhere near us. Not even Alex Wan thinks it is. He sent out his report here today listing the impacted neighborhoods, which didn't include us. It's a very complicated and pretty sophisticated process that we have never touched here. And I think it's not reasonable to ask this board to digest all the information and this membership. And
Jack,
take a
I understand
position.
that, and I understand that it's not close to Virginia-Highland. One issue that I think that you all should keep in mind is that it is a proposed amendment to NC legislation. Virginia-Highland has 3 NC districts, and what is suggesting, and what some people are suggesting in their interpretation, is that it could modify the way NC legislation could be amended in the future. For example, for non-conforming structures. I don't know if there are any non-conforming structures in Virginia-Highland. You should be aware that if this legislation goes through, it may have an impact. So I hear what you say about Cheshire Bridge, and that you know, and it is complex.
No.
It is extraordinarily complex.
It's a very complex
And I
and
don't think I could get it into.
difficult issue. And no, I personally support it with great gusto, but we haven't dealt with it. It's not because we don't care. It's because it's just not around us. It's not next to us. It involves a taking of property. It involves the constitutional issues. This is our own Aaron Fortner came in the middle of it and has resurrected it, reshaped it. I don't think I agree with you that there's any, it's my understanding there's no implication about this for our NC district, at least not inherently. That would concern me. JD, I can see you have something you want to say.
I always do. It's part of our NPU. We're part of NPUF, and it's a big issue in NPUF where they're expecting crowds next week because of it. And to just say that we don't have any interest in it is not.
I didn't say we didn't have any interest in it. I never said that. I don't agree with that at all. We have a great interest in it.
But
I don't think tonight, at this meeting, in 15 minutes, we can introduce a time and discuss and intelligently appreciate, or in an hour, a conversation that has been going, that has had hours and hours of discussion at repeated meetings in the last 3 months.
I understand.
And get through that, and do any kind of job. And I also asked Alex, if it meant anything. He said he perfectly understood this. I asked him if he would come tonight. I said, if you could make it, we would respond to your request that we support it. On that basis, we could pass some namby-pamby. We like the notion.
No, I wasn't asking for that.
I know, but I mean, I very much believe it's in our piece here, but you can't just bring this it's just too complicated to bring up in one sitting. It's a really complicated issue. In fact, our own Winnie Curry, just to give you a notion of it, who would love to see Cheshire Bridge change, thinks it's unconstitutional and a poor way to go about it. I don't think I agree with Winnie. We're not going to have a debate. I'm just saying it's complicated. It's really complicated.
I understand that.
And so
I'm just saying that it's part of our NPU, so some people might have an interest in it. And the simple explanation of what it is there are businesses on Cheshire Bridge that are non-conforming, and this is going to sunset them eventually if it gets passed. That's the simple.
This is
Sounds
gonna,
like
this
it's
is,
the opposite of grandfather, is that? the-
Yeah.
Okay.
yes, this is gonna take these,
Probably grandfather.
this is gonna take these hardworking private investors, private money that they have sweated for, and take it from them without any kind of reasonable due process whatsoever. So, I mean, you know, my heart,
Well, actually, that is for the courts to decide, Jack, that is not
I
a done deal.
totally get it, I totally get it, I'm just saying it's
I'm
not,
just trying to be balanced here.
it is not, I believe you me, I support the notion of it. This is a very difficult, this is not easy.
Right. I thought Alex would be here, because we're gonna vote on it in a couple of days.
We're gonna vote on some proposed changes to what we voted on in
In
December.
a couple of days, you mean at the next MPU meeting?
Well,
Meeting
in the
tonight.
next, yeah.
And that, I would encourage everybody to go to it. You can hear a lot of discussion on the topic, and that would be fine. But, I
If you do
mean,
come though, I'd recommend
I
you
would-
come early and,
in race solidarity with the NPU, Judy, I very much agree with that. But just as I very much expect other neighborhoods to support us when we have put a huge amount of effort
Yeah, that's
into
the
it, or
point.
to not oppose us, to not oppose us. We're not opposing it, and we're gonna show up in the meeting, many of us, and vote for it, so we'll be there. But, you know, we didn't go to Piedmont Heights and ask them to approve the Virginia-Highland NC district. It never occurred to us. You know, wouldn't have even dreamt of it.
Okay, end of discussion. I just wanted to make that point.
We'll be there, you and I will both be there voting for it next month with Debbie, over winning, we'll all vote winning. Maybe.
who has promised to stay neutral on the subject.
Okay, I'm just bringing it up, it's complicated, that's all, I'm just saying, it's really complicated.
Carpool if you're going.
Is there further discussion to come before this board? Then at 8:50, we are adjourned, 7:50, we are adjourned.
It is a record.
It is a record.
Sure, okay.
Monica.
I think I do. Are you still